All right, in this explainer, we're tackling a really critical distinction for leaders. This can seriously make or break a career. It's the difference between being data-driven and being data-informed. One, well, it leads to pretty predictable failures, while the other can unlock some real strategic breakthroughs.
You know, this quote right here, it just perfectly captures a trap that so many of us fall into. We crave that feeling of objectivity, right? Especially when the stakes are high. But that desire, it tricks us into believing that a spreadsheet can spit out one single perfect answer. And as we're about to see, that is a really dangerous illusion.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a story that might feel, well, a little too familiar. Let's call it the data-driven trap. It's a path that is absolutely paved with good intentions, but man, it often leads straight to failure. So picture this, right? You've got a product team and they're at a classic fork in the road. Do they go back and fix a really painful experience for their current users? Or do they chase after that shiny new feature, that new integration, to attract future customers? This is a huge strategic choice. So what do? Well, wanting to be rigorous and data-driven, they turn to a formula. They build out a race scoring model, ranking each option on reach, impact, confidence, and effort. They truly believe this will get rid of all the bias and just deliver the right answer.
And the model spits out the numbers. The new integration scores a 2.9. Improving onboarding gets a 2.7. It's close, but hey, the numbers don't lie, do they?
And just like that, the debate is over. The spreadsheet has spoken. It's made the decision for them. So the team moves forward, they start building the integration, feeling super confident in their objective, data-driven process.
But here's the punchline. 6 months of hard work later, the integration launches and nothing. Crickets. It's a total commercial failure. The team trusted a formula, and that formula drove them right off a cliff. So what on earth went wrong?
Well, this failure actually brings us to a much more mature and frankly more effective approach, the data-informed mindset. This is all about completely reframing the role of data from being the final judge to being a conversation starter.
So let's be super clear about what we're leaving behind. The data-driven mindset is the belief that a formula will provide the answer. This creates this dangerous illusion of precision, and this is the most important part, it lets leaders off the hook. It allows them to abdicate their core responsibility, which is to make a judgment call.
Now contrast that with the data-informed mindset. Here, the belief is that data is fuel for a better conversation. The final decision? Yeah, it's still a subjective human judgment, but it's one that is deeply understood, it's transparent, and it's accountable.
Let's really break this down. For the data-driven folks, data gives you the answer through some algorithm. The strength, it feels objective. The weakness, it's a false precision. For the data-informed, data informs a conversation that leads to a judgment call. The strength here is deep understanding and accountability. The weakness, it can feel messy, and that's actually okay.
So let's hit rewind for a second and see how a data-informed team would handle that exact same choice. Instead of just plugging numbers into a formula, they frame the entire decision as a strategic narrative.
They present two completely different paths. Path 1 is all about solving existing customer pain, and they back it up with emotional quotes from users and data on high drop-off rates. Path 2 is about acquiring brand new customers, and they support that with market size numbers and revenue projections. See? The data isn't a final score. It's the evidence for two competing strategies. And this approach, it didn't end the conversation. It started a real strategic one. The team actually debated the trade-offs. They started asking the fundamental question, what kind of company do we want to be? The whole discussion shifted from arguing about the third decimal point in a spreadsheet to a real debate about identity and strategy. So the leader made an accountable judgment call. They said, let's fix the foundational issue first. They chose onboarding. And the result? Customer satisfaction went through the roof, and word of mouth actually drove more growth than that integration ever could have. Same data, different mindset, totally different outcome.
Okay, this all sounds great, right? But how do you actually put this into practice? Let's get into the actionable playbook for leading the conversation.
It's really just 4 simple steps. First, ban the use of final rolled-up scores. Just get rid of them. Second, frame your data as different lenses to look through, not a final number. Third, be super explicit about who the single decider is. And fourth, document the reasoning, the why, behind the decision, not just the what.
So I want you to just take a moment and ask yourself this. In your leadership meetings, when somebody presents data, is it usually used as the final word? The data says, or is it used as a catalyst for a deeper discussion? Like, this is surprising. What's going on here?
Now look, this approach isn't a magic bullet. It can definitely devolve into an opinion battle if you don't structure the debate. And you have to watch out for the hypo, the highest paid person's opinion, which can dominate if the leader doesn't create real psychological safety. And sometimes, the decider might choose to ignore the data, but if they do, they have to clearly articulate why they're making a bet against it.
We always end these with something you can do immediately. So let's talk about your Monday morning action to make this whole thing real.
Here it is. In just one meeting this week, try this little experiment. Prohibit any final, calculated score. Present the underlying data as inputs, frame the strategic choice, and then force a genuine, structured debate. Just see what happens.
And I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. As a leader, what's your real preference? Is it the false comfort of a precisely wrong answer that comes from the spreadsheet? Or is it the messy, accountable work of arriving at a generally right one through real judgment and conversation? That choice, it really defines the quality of your leadership.